Welcome back to the Hockey Show, and we are, of course, I'm up the Colorado Avalanche, and now they might be in a little bit of a mess this upcoming offseason, and it might be the end of the Avalanche's golden era. And by that, I do not mean in any way that this team's about to become a shamble, be a wild card team. No way, Jose. There's no way in the world that they become a wild card team by any means. The fact that they have two of the top 5 best players in the world, depending on how you want to put them, maybe you put them number 1 and 2, but regardless of who you are, they've got to be in the top 5. Makar and McKinnon on this same team. Regardless of anything, these two will make their way into the playoffs. Add the fact that they've got Mikko Rantanen, a superstar Finnish lad who can score 50-goal seasons. Valeri Nichushkin and Lehkonen just padding out that top 6 forward group, okay? This team is incredible. Incredible. Defensively, they got most of their guys still signed. Makar, Taves, Manson. Bowen Byram, though, is the one that is going to have to be re-signed this offseason, which is where all this stuff comes into play. Where this offseason, well, not this offseason, this playoff season, they lose in the first rounds of the Seattle Kraken. Now, there is no shame in them losing that series. It was a hard-fought series. Their guys were playing so good out there, but the reason they lost is because they just weren't good enough depth-wise. I mean, we all know it. Say it with me. Depth. That was the key to their failure this playoff season. Last year, in the playoffs, the winning team of the Stanley Cup, I would say there's 5 things a playoff team needs to win the Stanley Cup. It's great superstars that show up and play like superstars. Depth, that number one, second thing is depth. Third is an amazing defensive corps. A good goaltender in net. He doesn't have to be good in the regular season or what. Take a look at Bobrovsky. They don't need to be amazing during the regular season. A good goaltender for the playoffs. And the 5th thing is determination to win and never give up. The Vegas Golden Knights get all of those. They hit the jackpot. They played the slots. They landed all of those, okay? The Panthers, they failed there. The Avalanche here, that is what they failed at this season. Superstars, playing like superstars, yes. Makar is kind of debatable, but he did start showing up toward the end of the series. Defense, yes. Goaltending, not so much. Determination, it's kind of debatable, but the depth, definitely not there at all. So really, they've only got like 3 out of 5 of those, and I would say the more important ones are there. So anyways, going forward here, what do they need to do? Well, this offseason coming up, I forgot to say, the last playoffs that they were in, they won the Stanley Cup after finishing 2nd in the league, and that was I think the best team ever constructed by any GM in the history of the NHL. Last year's Colorado Avalanche with Nazem Kadri and Andrei Burakovsky on the team and Darcy Kemper in net, that was the best team ever put on the ice ever in the NHL. How they absolutely dominated every single team they played, and just how they looked like a threat every 60 minutes of the ice. And you know why? It's because they had 3 offensive lines that were buzzing on the ice. A 6-man defense that was absolutely brutal to play against. And at the end of the day, a goaltender net where if you needed Darcy Kemper to stand on his head, he would do that. And he would stop everything. Best team ever fielded. But you know how they did that? It's because those guys like Kadri and Burakovsky were on smaller deals. They didn't get those raises that they got going to Seattle and going to Calgary. And then you also got guys like Nichushkin and Lehkonen on smaller deals as well, which then they re-signed them, but to raises, right? And that takes up more of the cap space. Now going forward, they're going to start running into more of these issues. Guys like Nathan McKinnon going from double his contract now from $6 to $12 million. And now they're going to be in a bit of a pickle this upcoming offseason. So they've only got $19.5 million to spend. It's more like 19.4 something, but 19.5, just rounding it up here. $19.5 million to spend on out of 10 players. They need 10 players to fill out their team. They have 13 roster spots already filled, and they have 3 RFAs and 8 UFAs this offseason. Now, Here is the biggest issue. Bowen Byram. You gotta think this guy gets paid his money. $6 to $8 million is what I think he's worth. This season, he played 42 games, and I believe he was in like the 26-point range, somewhere like maybe 28, something like that. If he played a full season, you gotta think he gets to like 40-something points. Maybe he breaks into 50. That's pretty good, pretty good numbers for a defenseman. Pretty good. And for how good he is also defensively as well. Bowen Byram's a great player. So you got to assume he's going to get his paid. He's earned his amount of contract. He played good in the playoffs, and Byram's going to get his money. He doesn't need to prove himself anymore. I would assume $6 to $8 million, just going off of what guys like Cole Caulfield are getting, Jesper Bratt are getting. Defensemen seem to usually get paid what they deserve. I don't really see defensemen ever taking smaller deals because getting a good defenseman is worth so much in this NHL, and Byram is one of those good defensemen, so I think he gets paid his money. So, Bowen Byram, 6 to 8. Alex Newhook, though, a good part of that last year's Stanley Cup run, and then this offseason, I feel like he did kind of disappear, but whatever. Newhook, I think, does still need to prove himself. He hasn't really earned a true spot on the team, I think. I still think he's feeling himself out. So for me, I could see him earning, I could even see him going down to 1.5, but I'd say 2.5 to 4.5, probably not the 4.5. But I'd say probably $2.5 million for him. So combining those two numbers, to me, at my just basic guesstimations, I get between 8.5 to 12.5 just combined on those two guys themselves, and then subtract that from the 19.5 that they still have to spend. They're only being left with $11 to $7 million to spend on 8 more players, which, here's the thing. Signing 8 players itself with only $11 to $7 million, signing 8 players is already tough. Now add in the fact that you're trying to add in players that are good enough to help you win a Stanley Cup is even harder. That's the issue. Now, between those 8 players, that's averaging 1.375 per player. Now, those are not like good players. Those are like players making a jump from like the AHL or something, or being re-signed from like being a fourth liner. Those are not good players who are being paid $1.375 million. Guys like JT Comfort becoming a free agent this offseason. Saravelli, I personally think he's kind of right, but my own speculation's $4 to $5 million. For JT Comfort, I don't think he's worth $5 million. I'm sure some team out there will be like, he won a Stanley Cup, he deserves it, and we'll sign him to that. I don't think the Avs will see him that way, and I don't think he's worth being that second-line centerman for him. I don't think he really did much for the team. He's one of those type of guys that scores a goal and is like very excited. Like, I feel he's one of those guys that a team needs to win the Stanley Cup, but he's not someone you build your team around. You know what I mean? And the Avalanche, I think they need a guy to build around, and they need a guy that needs to be on a team, if that makes any sense. So $4 to $5 million as well, that's like half of the amount of money that they have left to spend. Even with the 19.5, $4 to $5 million, that's a quarter of the amount they have left to spend. Is JT Comfort worth that much money? I don't think so. Same thing goes for Evan Rodriguez. He had 39 points this last season with the Avs, playing second line minutes, and for him, I'm speculating $3 to $4 million, even more than that. 39 points for being second line. I think he should have gotten more points than that. Personally, during the playoffs, I think he kind of disappeared, and $3 to $4 million, I think, is worth for him. But if you combine those two guys, I mean, 3 to 4, let's just take the smaller of the two, $7 million, that's already my lowest amount that they have left to spend on 2 guys. So those 2 guys probably out of here. They want to get their pay as well, Rodriguez especially. I think he wants to make a jump. JT Comfort, I think he's going to want to sign a sort of long-term deal, like 5 years, for something like $4 to $5 million to get his last paycheck for his career. And I don't see the Avs keeping on to those guys, which is going to be a big blow to the team. Now, defense is fine. They've got those guys locked in. I think they would re-sign Bowen Byram, and this is the best defense in the league. I don't know if I've said that already in this video, but Colorado's defense, in my opinion, is the best in the NHL. When it comes to just being such a shutdown machine, they're amazing. How they can get the puck on their stick and shoot it down the ice with Makar and Girard especially. plus Bowen Byram, plus Devon Tays and Manson, and whoever their sixth defenseman always is. I think it'll change between Jack Johnson Eric Johnson this offseason. I think he's not going to be staying with the team unless he signs a really low contract. So they're looking for one more defenseman back there, but I think they'll find someone. Or if they re-sign a guy like Eric Johnson to a small contract if he agrees to it. So defense is fine. Goaltending was passable, good in the regular season, but in the playoffs, Georgiev did not get me the thumbs up to him because he looked bad. A lot of the goals he gave up to the Kraken were not good. A lot of them, I remember it was just a normal backhand and it just went over his glove. He just didn't save it. That was ridiculous. Georgiev was not good in the playoffs, and I think they should have given the backup an opportunity, because I wasn't Francois hurt at the time, so it wasn't Francois unless it was. If it was, then I think they should have thrown him in there. But regardless, I think they could maybe try to find a better goaltender for the playoffs, maybe at the trade deadline. But for right now, goaltending is fine. Goaltending is fine going forward right now. Now, offense, of course, is the issue. Now, here's some proof here. The last playoffs, okay. 12 players on the Avalanche in that first round, round number 1, 12 players had 1 point. Okay, 12 players and 1 point, 9 players with 2 or more points, and 6 players with 5 points or more. The Boston Bruins going as well to 7 games in round 1 against the Florida Panthers, and I know it was a different series, a lot more high scoring, but whatever. Regardless, the Avalanche should be held to kind of their standard, in my opinion. The Boston Bruins had 17 players with 1 point, so that's 5 more players than the Avalanche. They had 13 players with 2 or more points to the Avalanche's 9, and then they had 8 players with 5 or more points, which is 6 to the Avalanche. So the Bruins, who also lost in round 1, having a lot more depth scoring, a lot more guys jumping into the lineup. I mean, 17 players with 1 point. That's almost all 18 skaters on the ice. Only one guy missing, and I think there was injuries going on, so they had to keep flipping in guys in and out. So really, probably the 17 who were constants in the lineup they had a point in their playoff run. But not just that, but take a look at the Seattle Kraken, the team that they played against. 18 players. That's enough for every skater who played in that series with at least 1 point playing. Then you've got 9 players. Now here, listen to this. 9 players with at least 1 goal. That's the Kraken. They had 9 players with at least 1 goal. The Avalanche, they had, hang on. I completely screwed up my board here. It's supposed to be 18 players for the Seattle Kraken who had at least 1 goal to the Avalanche's 9, which is huge. Every player who played on the ice for the Seattle Kraken were getting at least 1 goal into the game. The Avalanche, they didn't have that. They did not have a guy. They didn't have every single player getting a goal in the series. They only had 9. That's half of their roster on the ice. Except, other than goaltenders, having a point to play. That is huge. That is a huge, huge deal. And that just goes to show you, the Avalanche should be held to that standard, getting those guys in. And that is the biggest issue. So right now, also, here's an interesting idea going forward. The Vegas Golden Knights, currently right now, they have 11 forwards signed. Out of those 11 forwards, that takes up 54.5% of their cap space, okay? 54.5%. That's a little bit over half of their cap space for 11 players. They're only missing 1 signed forward, and that would fill out their entire 12 forwards that they put on the ice. Or if they did, the 7-11 route. But for the Avalanche, right now they only have 6 forwards, and that's including Frederick Olofsson, who knows if he's even playing in the NHL next season. So really, it's only 5 players, 5 forwards signed right now, already taking up 41% of the cap space. They're running into a Toronto Maple Leaf situation. I know it's hard for me to say it, but it's true. 41% signed to only 5 players on their team right now. 5 forwards. That means that by the time, if they fill out the rest of their forward group, they're easily going to surpass the Vegas Golden Knights, who just won the Stanley Cup and have their team already booked for next season. And Colorado here, with only $19 million to spend, and you're going to have to keep some guys on defense. So it's interesting. This is such a great team with such amazing superstars, but depth is killing them because the rest of the 45 minutes that Nathan McKinnon wasn't playing, and Makar was not playing during the playoffs last year was killing them, absolutely killing them. And it's a shame because this team's got such good talent. I mean, they're going to be a playoff team regardless of anything. This is definitely a playoff team, but that's the issue. When it comes to like teams that are like definite playoff teams, it's like they don't care about how they do in the regular season. They only care about how they do in the playoffs. And for the Avalanche, they've won the President's Trophy. Their guys are superstars. They don't care about winning the regular season. They don't care if they get 150-point seasons. They want to win another Stanley Cup because that's what happens. You know, it's the same thing if you play like a video game. It's like once you beat like the final boss, you don't want to like restart you don't want to like play the game from like you don't want to go and beat like the regular guys. You want to start beating the more big guys, you know? Once you keep breaking those barriers, you want to keep going and going and going. That's why difficulty increases, so you play harder and harder. Same thing for these guys, right? McKinnon, Makar, they don't care about winning another President's Trophy. These guys want another Stanley Cup, but it's going to be hard because that other 45 minutes that they're not on the ice killed them during the playoffs last year, and I don't really see them getting much better next season because the trade market value, the guys, like, they're not going to be able to sign a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi. They're just not going to be able to. Guys like Valeri Nichushkin, now they could move out some contracts. I hear people want to move out like Gerard's contract, which I think would be a good choice, but at the same time, it would be really I mean, sometimes you have to cut off some weight to make some parts of you better, and I guess if you want to remove that second, like, really good puck-moving defenseman who can really make some amazing plays, then I guess you could cut off Gerard, but I just don't know if that would you rather get rid of your best defensive group to try to make a slightly better offensive group? I don't know. I don't know what they do here. It's going to be challenging. Personally, for me, some ideas, I think they should go out there and get Matthew Phillips, which I'm sure you've never heard of him, but he was a part of the Wranglers, the Calgary Flames AHL team, and I saw him in person. I think he's I think he's only, 24 or something like that. I think they should sign him, a guy like that, to give him an opportunity to maybe shine as a player. Sign him like a 2-year, $1 million contract, give him an opportunity, and I think he could be like a 20-goal scorer. I know that might sound crazy, but I saw him up in person. He looked really good. He dominated the ice whenever he was out there. Give him an opportunity to shine, and that's what the Avs need to do. They need to go out there, find some guys, and be like, hey, you're on a small contract. Let's bring you on to the team, try to trade you away for nothing, especially look to a guy like the Sharks where the GM's an idiot and will probably trade you anything for nothing, and go out for those type of guys and find those players and be like, hey, let's give this guy an opportunity to play on our team, give him a chance to just grow into that star and be that young guy who's going out there with a fire underneath them. That's what the Avs need. They need to find not guys like Cogliano and Darren Helm. That they need to find some guys like a Matthew Phillips, a guys like a Barabanov or something like that. Some guys that are looking for an opportunity to be on the best team in the league to try to win a Stanley Cup. But another issue is that they don't really have much to get rid of. Draft picks, not many left to really trade away. Young guys to trade away, not a lot of good talent that they can really give up. So I'm not sure. I hear that they're linked to Brett Pesce somehow. I don't think that's the way to go. I don't think Brett Pesce is going to be a problem solver for the Avalanche. Maybe he would be because he's a good defensive shutdown guy. They don't really have another one of those. I don't know. I just, once again, it's kind of like, why mess with your defense? Your offense is the issue. Why would you? It just wouldn't make any sense to me. So, really, at the end of the day, this is a playoff team that's going to make the playoffs and could make it past the first round, but that depth is going to kill them. Then I don't see a really easy way of them getting out of it. I just don't. I know this video's gone on a really long time, and usually I don't go this long on these type of videos, but for the Avalanche, there's just a lot to talk. It's a lot more like, it's a lot deeper than most teams. Like, the last team I talked about, like Carolina, it was, like, very simple, like, they have their issues, but they also have some cap space, and they've got some young guys they can bring up, like, some really easy solutions to some of their issues. But for the Avalanche, they don't have young guys to replace them, and it's a lot more dire, and I don't know. That's all I got to say. I know it's been long. I'm sure you haven't gotten to this point, but if you have, thank you for watching this, and if you have, please pick up your free subscription. I'm begging you, please. And until next time, too sweet, have an amazing day, and ta-ta for now.